Today, we're going to teach you how to raise my favorite animal, chickens.
Welcome to Cattywampus Acres. Today we're going to take you through a video showing you guys a little bit that we've learned over the years about chickens.
Oh my god, there's so many types of chickens. Look at this chicken, look at that chicken. There's so many breeds of chickens. So here's the deal, there's many breeds of chickens. There's probably as many breeds of chickens as there are people. There's three main types of birds. There's meat birds, dual purpose, and layers. Today our main focus is layers, although a dual purpose bird is also a layer that can later become a meat bird. And a meat bird is just what it sounds like. Its sole purpose is for growing very quickly, like in a matter of a couple months, to butchering weight and then going right in your belly. So this is one of our chickens. She is a Rhode Island Red, and she's one of the more popular dual purpose birds. So she's a good layer, about 5 or 6 eggs a week when they're young, and she also could be a meat bird if we want her to be. So we're going to cover the pieces and parts of a chicken. Not the pieces and parts you eat, but the pieces and parts you'll have to know about. So right here on top of her head is her comb. This is a normal comb. Then right back here is her earlobes. Oh, she likes that. So she has red earlobes, as you can see here. And so she will lay brown eggs. And that's typically a good indicator for what type of eggs, what color of eggs the chicken's going to lay. The leghorns have the white ears, they lay white eggs. The ones that have the red ears lay brown eggs or some variation of brown. And the ones, the Americanas that have no earlobes visible but have a muff, they lay a colored egg. And so this is her wattle, and you can see it's all nice, bright and red, and she loves being poked at, you can tell. It's all bright red, and which means that she's got good blood flow and she's healthy. Down here, if you got to feel under their feathers, down here on the side of their neck is their craw or their crop. You'll hear it called different things depending on what part of the country you're in. But that is where their food goes, and in there they'll eat whatever they eat, food, grain, bugs, whatever. But chickens cannot digest like humans can with liquid, and so what they will do is they'll eat that, then they'll eat some grit, which is just gravel or stuff from the ground, and it all gets smushed up inside their crop. The last thing we're going to show you is their vent, and this is the gross part, and so parental advisory if you will, but this is where all the magic happens. And so down here there is somewhere in all these feathers, right here is the chicken's vent. They will do both functions out of there, but they will also that's also where the eggs come out of. And so that's just something you need to know. And a good moist vent means that they are in full laying production. One thing that's a common misconception is a rooster needed to have eggs? The roosters are not needed to lay eggs. A hen will lay eggs without a rooster. If you do have roosters, they will fertilize the eggs. In order for a fertilized egg, to turn into a chick, just to sort of put your mind at ease on not getting a chick out of one of your eggs at the store, can you sort of explain that to us, Lauren?
So when you have eggs and they're going to become chicks, first of all, they have to be fertilized eggs. So the hen has to have been mounted by the rooster and fertilized the egg. She'll lay that egg, and then the egg has to be incubated. So for 21 days is how long it takes for an egg to develop into a chick. If you're ever concerned about getting a developed egg from a farm or something, that's really, if you collect every day, you're not going to have a developed egg.
So the thing to remember is when you have a chicken, if you have roosters, if you have one rooster can fertilize like up to 10 hens or so. So the thing to remember is if you have a rooster with your hens where they have access to each other, you have to collect your eggs every day or every night or every day. You got to collect them at least once a day, because If you let them go 2, 3, 4 days, the development process is going to start. So do not forget, because that very well may ruin your taste for eggs. Here we have some of the eggs that our chickens lay. You can see there's a variety of egg colors. And if you listen in the background, you can hear the chickens making noise. Now that's the hens. And what the hens do when they're laying eggs is they make what's called an egg song. And so that, if you're worried about noise from your chickens, that is about the most noise you're gonna have to worry about if you only have hens. Now if you have roosters, then you got another thing coming to you. But as far as it goes for hens, if you're in like a neighborhood or something, that's about all you're gonna get. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so this is a green egg. Obviously this comes from an Americana or Easter egger. They have different names. Basically an Americana is more of a mutt chicken. They come from an Araucana, which lays more of a blue egg, and they've sort of bred them into other ones, and they've become what we know as the Americana now. This is your white egg. This is from a pearl white leghorn. This is what you'd commonly see in a store, your typical white egg. Now you may ask yourself, are white eggs just come from the store and brown eggs are farm fresh, right? Well, that's incorrect. No, that's right. Because as we show you in this video, it all depends on the breed of the chicken, on what color the eggs are going to be. And the only thing that's going to change the flavor or the overall nutrition of the egg itself is going to be what they eat. If they scratch around in the grass, they're going to, any of the breeds, any of the colors of the eggs, if they're eating bugs and eating stuff from the ground as their main source of nutrition, they are going to all have the similar nutrition facts. And we go ahead.
Store-bought eggs are generally white because they use a breed, the pearl white leghorns, because they crank out eggs. And so they are most commonly used for production of eggs just because they are so efficient and they lay so many, as opposed to other chickens that won't lay for every day or as they get older. And so leghorns crank them out.
Yeah, so typically a leghorn will lay 6 to 7 eggs a week. An Americana will only lay about 4 to 5 a week, and as they get older, they lay even less. These cool looking ones, and you would probably think that's not even a chicken egg, but these are from a well summer, which we have a couple of well summers, and we've had since we started raising chickens. And once again, different looking egg doesn't change any of the flavor on the inside. And then this is your standard brown egg, which you always see at the stores, and these are going to come from a black Australorp or a Red Ranger, a cinnamon queen, something of that nature. Your big egg farmers are basically going for whatever is going to lay the most. Chickens are born with a certain amount of egg cells in their bodies when they are hatched, and those egg cells are going to be there until they're run out. Each egg cell will eventually turn into an egg. Your first 18 months of laying eggs will be very regular. That you're talking, 5 to 7 eggs per week typically for most breeds. But as they get older, their egg production will slow down.
Chickens start laying when they're about 6 months old. They're called pullets when they're not laying yet. We have some chicks we'll show you in a minute. We have some pearl white leghorn chicks. And then you'll see the stage. They get pretty scraggly looking as they get their feathers. They look a bit mangy.
They're teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers. And so they'll lay at 6 months. And so once they start laying, then they have those set amount of eggs that they'll lay, and then they'll age out from laying 3-4 years old.
Yeah. So typically a chicken's not going to, after about 4 years, 3 or 4 years, you're gonna get maybe 1 egg a week, if that. So that's something that you'll have to keep in mind, that if you want this chicken to just become a pet at that point, Or if you want to
Stew.
yeah, dun dun dun. You want to turn them into, you know, more of a food.
So these are our brooders that Jason and Keaton built, and they're in our garage to help maintain and regulate the temperature. We've got 15 chicks in here. We got them a few weeks ago, and they are in the stages of feathering out. And so they've got a waterer and their feed in there. And then each one has a lamp, a heat lamp. When you get chicks, you want them to keep them about 105 to 100 degrees. And then you're gonna bring them down 5 degrees each week. Since it's been in the 90s, you know, heat index of about 100 in Georgia lately, we haven't had to use a light, but this is what the light we have in the bottom, that's what that looks like. And so that will keep them warm, and you'll be able to tell if your chicks are too hot or too cold. If they're too cold, you'll see them all huddled together, and if they're too hot, you'll see them way far from the light, and they'll spread out. And so they need fresh water. We'll give them electrolytes the first week that we have them, and then we give them just, you know, clean water. And so let me grab one of these guys. So here we have one of the pearl white leghorn chicks. As you can see, she's beginning to feather out. You can see her wings. She's getting her feathers. She's still got a fluffy head. As you know, chicks, when they're all that fluff when you get them. And so they're going to feather out. And as soon as they have feathers, we'll move them to the tractor and get them acclimated to outdoors. We'll let them grow in there for several weeks before we introduce them to the rest of the flock. If we introduce them too young, the pecking order is real.
So pecking order, my understanding is, once again being an expert that I am, the term pecking order comes from birds. And so what you'll notice is in the coop at night, when you have your coop, if you have more than two birds, you're gonna see how the pecking order works. The bird that thinks they're the best is gonna want to be highest, and they will peck the smaller birds to let them know their place. And so
we've had injuries, a few. I mean, they'll draw blood, pecking each other on the head. We've had to mend a few of those.
I know there's a science to raising chickens, but I don't.
This is homesteading in real life.
Yes, this is the real deal, and we just want you guys to know that anybody.
It doesn't have to be this elaborate. Before we built this, they were in a giant plastic tub in our dining room.
Yeah.
And people use kiddie pools. I mean, you can buy the sets at Tractor Supply and this and that if you want, but it does not have to be elaborate. And by the time they get big enough, you know, you just put a little screen over the top of the tub because they'll jump out. We found poop in our dining room from them jumping out before we figured out the screen. But it doesn't have to be elaborate. We did this just because this is what we do, and we're gonna have them regularly. So we went ahead and made a more permanent thing. Also, didn't want them in my dining room anymore.
We keep them in the garage because of that right there. This is anything you make for a chicken, you're going to learn. If you build a coop, if you build a chicken tractor, if you build a brooder, whatever it is, you're going to learn different things about chickens.
And this is what works for us. And, you know, wherever you're at, you know, your climate, something can be different, your homestead setup, something like that. But this is what we found works for us. And we just want to share, you know, what works for us, and then you can figure out what works for you if this is something you're trying to get into, or even if you want to improve on what you have. And if you guys have ideas for us to think how we can, you know, make better what we have, we always are willing to hear those. We definitely want you guys to share that with us.
Okay, I know people say that they're airing their dirty laundry. We're about to air our dirty coop. Our coop needs to be clean, but we're going to show you inside here how this works. And we're going to close the door because look at who's trying to get in here. So this is our coop, airflow. So this is our nesting boxes. This is a broody hen, and she is trying to turn her eggs into chicks. Whether or not they're fertilized, she does not know. but this is a mode that hens will go into from time to time. They will rarely eat and drink very little when they're broody because they like to keep their clutch of eggs and keep them safe. So what happens when you try and grab those eggs, Lauren?
Oh, she'll peck your hand.
And so they're very protective when they're like this. So in our coop you have to have some roosts. It's very important because this is what they roost on. This is what they sleep on at night. And these are 2x4s. And so anything basically 1.5 inches or bigger, a normal sized chicken will stand on. That includes anything they can stand on. These are nesting boxes. The nesting boxes have spots for them to jump onto, and they will go anywhere. And ventilation's important, winter or summer, doesn't matter. A door for us to get into is important because I won't fit through this thing here, which is the pop door. And that is also important for wherever you're letting them run to. So this is our version of a chicken tractor. It's got some wheels in the front, and we pick it up and move it around if we want to pasture any chickens. This one is heavy. This is something to be mindful of if you are going to pasture your chickens and keep them out in the grass and move them daily, is that this one, although it's I think it's about 4x8, it is extremely heavy and would be hard for one person to move. But it's got a lid to hold them in, open bottom so they can access everything, supports, and it's made of tin and wood.
We have this broody hen, which she's been broody for a few days now. There's also another one of the black hens that has been broody for several nights. She's gotten my hand several times as I've taken her eggs from her. She's not in there in the boxes right now. She might be back tonight, and if she's in there tonight, then I'll move her out here with this hen.
And we got food and water in there for her, so we're not torturing her, for anybody who would think that. But she'll stay in there, and because she won't have a clutch of eggs, she will eventually, after a few days, break her brood, and she will go back to being a normal chicken doing her thing.
All right, so eggs are going to get dirty, whether they have hay or whatever type of bedding you have in your nesting boxes. The yolks can get on them if an egg breaks, just various things, and so you want to wash them. We generally don't wash our eggs until right before we use them. They have what's called a bloom on the egg, put there by the hen, that protects that egg and preserves it, basically. So we leave ours out. We leave them on the counter, and we leave them to 4 weeks. What we do is we test them. You're gonna have eggs that float are bad. So here we've got some eggs. They're standing upright, which means basically as the egg gets older, the air sac gets bigger. So the air sac is going to float, or the eggs will stand up. They're still good at this point. There's nothing wrong with these eggs. I would eat these eggs. But if they float, then you don't want to use them. You don't want to eat those. Those are going to go bad. So we just use some cool water, and then we have a brush or scrubby or something, and just wipe off whatever you've got on it, whether it be yolk or dirt or hay, and then we just let them dry, and then we will package them. For us, if we're selling them or we're giving them away, we do what's called candling. We will candle them.
So the important thing to remember is after you've washed the bloom off of an egg, they have to be refrigerated. So to recap what we talked about today and the things you guys need to know, you can buy chickens at a hatchery online if you have one local to you. You can go to a lot of the tractor supply companies keep them and have them for sale there, and as well as hardware stores a lot of times in local areas, so your local hardware stores will sometimes carry them, and they're usually about $3 or so for your normal chickens.
Next thing you need is a brooder. They can be various things: tubs, kiddie pools, more elaborate things. There's lots of different things that you can do some research on and find out what is useful or what works for your situation. And then in that you'll need bedding, a heat lamp, proper temperatures. Start at about 100 degrees and go down 5 degrees each week as they grow and feather out. And then you'll need feed and water, clean water for them always, and some grit as well to help them digest their food.
Next is the coop. And the coop will be depending on how many chickens you have. If you have a couple chickens, a very small coop that they sell commercially will work just fine. Although those are very expensive, I would always suggest building your own or doing it yourself if you can. It doesn't require much. Just some wood and some chicken wire usually is enough to get it done. If you have a lot of chickens, just remember they need about 12 inches per chicken when they're roosting at night, but that's going to be the main time that they're in the coop. The roosts are what they sit on and sleep on at night. The nesting boxes are important because you'll need a small area for them to lay eggs in. And you'll also need some type of bedding, whether it be sand, hay, straw, or wood chips. We typically use a pine flake. Just don't use anything cedar. Chickens are allergic to cedar. And then lastly, just remember to keep your coop vented. I know you'll see a lot of things about people putting sweaters on their chickens and things of that nature. Chickens can regulate their own temperature, so don't worry about them. They'll be fine, unless you're in the North Pole. Next is the chicken tractor. The chicken tractor, like we showed you in the video, is if you're going to pasture your chickens, which is just putting them out on grass and moving them daily. That is the very important key, is that you do have to remember to move them daily, or else that patch of grass is going to be gone. So, and you need to decide whether you're going to have your chickens in a run or if you're going to allow them to free range. And free ranging is letting them run the whole yard, and keeping them in a run would be dependent on how many you had, and that would be just an area that they can't get out of. Chickens can only fly probably about 7 or 8 feet typically, and if you clip their wings it's even lower. And then there's always other options to use electric netting or something like that if you want to put a little bit more money into it.
And whether you want to have a run or free range, it's up to you guys. And just make sure you have, there's pros and cons to each one of them. But predators are a big problem. Everything eats chicken. So if you want to have them in a run, make sure they're protected and your coop is predator safe. And if you free range them, be prepared you're going to lose 1 or 2 here and there to owls and hawks, which we've definitely had a problem with in the past.
Yep, so remember, just like we like eating chicken and like eating eggs, so does pretty much everything else that eats meat. So yeah, you always got to worry about aerial predators, night predators, predators with 4 legs. They all matter and they all eat chicken. So finally, if you guys have any questions about anything you saw in the video, whether it be dimensions on the coops or runs or anything we have, any of the stuff you saw us using in the video, any questions about anything chicken related, please put it down in the comments and we'll get to the answer. And if you have a good idea for a new video, send that to us as well.
Thanks for watching our video. We hope you guys learned something about chickens. If you guys did, share in the comments what your favorite part or what your favorite piece of knowledge was today. And also share with us what you guys do and what we can learn from you guys.
And please remember to subscribe to our channel to help support what we're doing here and support future videos. And down in the bottom corner, hit that bell so you can be up to date on all of our new videos that we're going to be posting at least every week. Thanks, guys.